Okay. So whenever these three words, movie titles, come to your mind, what does these three have in common, or what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Give it a thought. Singham, Suryavanshi, Sarfarosh. All these three represent what? Police. The most powerful structure of India for the civilian government is what? The police force. Today we will discuss the police reforms since independence till now, what has been growing wrong and what can be done more. Okay? Step by step, each thing from the definition till the major flaws and how they are working. Just think, we are a population of 140 crore people and managing them is the primary task of who? The police authorities. And they are to some extent doing a fantastic job. But like always, there are loopholes and we'll study that. Okay, this was the starting slide. Understood? Whenever these three names come up, police is the first word. So, what's next? Okay, understood? Now see, what is police for a common man? Okay, if you want to know what is actually police, okay, to understand, it is the first point of contact for any civilian during a time of distress or disaster or just plain simple panic. If you can think of any situation, personal, professional, anything, where you are in a state of panic, disaster or distress, what is your first point of contact? That is what? Police. That is the colloquial language of definition of police. Whenever you are in any trouble, where do you go? Whom do you approach first? Police. Be it theft, be it bribery, be it cheating, be it anything, just anything. You met with an accident. What is the first point of contact? It is always the police. But this is a colloquial language, common people's language, verbose to some extent. We'll decide what is the definition of police. And the best part of this is there has been no clearly defined definition of police. It is just very vague, very broad, and it's always like an open canvas. So we'll decide first what is the definition of police. Before that, see, we were discussing what? Polity static. We had discussed for C, the criminal justice system. Then there were 3 P's: pendency of cases, prisons, and principle of natural justice or just principle of justice. Then there was LPJ reforms. We had yesterday covered what? The legal framework. Okay? The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha, and the other one, the Indian Evidence Act. Then comes police, which we are going to discuss today. And after that, tomorrow we will discuss the last remaining benchmark or the last remaining pillar, that is the judiciary. But a part of the static part, why is it in news? Just why is the police so much in news? Because see, it's in news, therefore there is a greater chance of it being asked in the mains examination and to some extent in the prelims examination. So why is it in news? Because recently there was 60th All India DGP conference. 60th All India DGP conference, Director General of Police / Inspector General of Police conference. And over here our Honorable Prime Minister made a few comments. The comments were, majorly what he said was, quote, there is urgent need to transform public perception of police, especially among the youth. The whole idea, again unquote, the whole idea is what? To change the public perception of the youth, what it is regarding the police. The whole idea, the way we think of police, like we said, we use the 3 names, Singham, Suryavanshi, Sarfarosh. The very name strikes what police, but these strike a positive balance of police when we think of these names. But in general, in day-to-day lives, in our dreams also, whenever we think of police, there is a perception which is mostly negative. That is what our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, tried to reiterate, that we have to change this basic perception of police in the minds of common people. Okay, that is it. Now see, we'll get into the details, and there's a proper perception report which we'll see in the last slides. First we'll see the conceptual part, and in this end we'll see what the data is representing, the data and the facts. Okay, now see, first definition, what is police? Now where does the power of police come from? Police Act of, this is the most ancient, Police Act of 1861, and to extent, who is the father of Indian police? He was Cornwallis. Not important, but just runaway reference. So this is the basic act which is governing our police structure as of today since ages. Now, according to this, what is the definition of police? See, we'll see around about 3 to 4 definitions of police, and we'll see that each and every definition in its own is vague. It's not precise. होता है ना, in every topic we are seeing there is ambiguity and vagueness leading to loopholes. So what is the definition of police according to Indian Police Act 1861? The definition is, according to Indian Police Act 1861, section 1, all persons who shall be enrolled under this act, like all persons who are enrolled under this specific act come under the definition, broad definition of what is known as police. Okay, so what it is, like very vague, right? Anyone who's enrolled under this is a police. Next comes Maharashtra Police Act. See, we'll go through ages, hota na, first independence, then close to independence, then today's time. That is how we'll see the timeline of the definition of the evolving definition of police. Then comes the Maharashtra Police Act 1851. Okay, no need to write it down, just hota na, remember Maharashtra Police Act is saying this, that 1951 Maharashtra Police Act, what is it saying? All individuals appointed as police officers. All individuals appointed as police officers. And the second is, the second part of the same definition is, any person responsible for preventing detention or crime. Any person, like, so any whoever person who is responsible for preventing crime is termed as police. See, again, or maintaining order. Again, a very, very broad definition of police. Next comes what? The most recent Model Police Act of 2006. Model Police Act 2006. See, we had the opportunity to clarify the definition, but again, there is some ambiguity still prevailing. Police means, and this is according to Ministry of Home Affairs. Always remember, Model Police Act is Ministry of Home Affairs 2006. Again, what does it say? It says, police means all persons appointed under the act, okay, responsible for maintaining order, enforcing the law, preventing and detecting crime, and protecting life and property. It is somewhat broad, okay, but there is, you can see the convergence. Like earlier it was any person appointed under this. Now specificities are maintained and are being articulated. Next comes the famous, which you have to write mostly in your answer. The definition of police which was given in Supreme Court judgment, what? Prakash Singh. Prakash Singh in, okay, he was a, he reached to the topmost rank of the police. He was the DGP of UP and the headmost position of BSF in Assam. Okay, so he knows the in and out of what is wrong with the police, what is good with the police, and how it needs to be reformed. So this was a judgment, Supreme Court judgment in Prakash Singh case. And what did it say? Any agency of the state responsible for prevention and detection of crime, maintenance of public order and enforcement of law. I'll repeat. Okay, any agency. It's not the any agency which is recruited or authorized at that particular time of the state responsible for prevention and detection of crime, maintenance of public order and enforcement of law. That is it in Prakash Singh case. See, we'll see the recommendation of Prakash Singh in detail, because this is all what the examiner wants to see in your answer. It is the most precise, most concise and the most value added reformations, recommendations which we need to implement. Last is what? According to the Code of Criminal Procedure, which has to some extent CRPC, okay? CR, Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. According to it, what is the definition? It says there is no definition, okay? The word police particularly has no definition, but just hold on a minute. Okay, I suppose it's no more blurred. Okay. Now see, there is no particular definition of police, but what it defines is what are police stations, what is officer in charge, what is police custody, and what is investigation. Again, it defines is police station, officer in charge, police custody, and investigation. In simple, it defines the scope, the general scope of police. But what are the responsibilities of police? But what is police? It doesn't define. Now last, we also need to know what? The constitutional status, whether it is mentioned or defined explicitly in the constitution or not. The simple answer is no. The word police is not defined in the constitution. But police is what? Always remember, police is a state subject. Since colonial times, police is what? A state subject. Memorize this. Police is a state subject. Okay. Second part is what? Where state subject, the 7th schedule, and the central police force. That is also we've seen evolution of the police. Now there's a central CAPF, Central Armed Police Forces also. That comes under what? That is also created by the union government itself, and that is also in the union list. Remember that police is in the state list, okay, but Central Armed Police Force is in the union list. Okay, this was the basic. You need to know the definition. Now what we are dealing with. Now comes what? Okay. Now comes the 3 to change the whole structure of police to some extent. Okay. We've discussed in the last class the legal framework. So I'll just repeat it once again. The basic legal framework which are being changed is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Nyaya Sangathan, and the last one is Bharatiya Sakshay Adhiniyam. Bharatiya Sakshay Adhiniyam. Just keep these three in the frame of mind to understand whatever difficulties we are having are to some extent being solved with this. The second one's definition is, I'm repeating, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita. Understood what is going on? Now see, we understood police is the first point of contact, the point of distress, whatever you like to call it. Okay. Now, why are so many disturbances or loopholes in the Police Act? Because it was done in 1861, and again we had discussed from the ethics class to the polity class the principle of means and ends. Okay. So this was, the Police Act was brought by whom? The colonial era, the colonial people. So what was the means? The means was to suppress dissent, suppress freedom. So all the acts which were imbibed or articulated in the Indian Police Act were towards suppressing dissent. Therefore, there are so much divergences relating to today's Indian society, because at that time the colonial power wanted to suppress us, but now we have evolved as a democracy. Now we need what? Reformation. So at today's present time and age, these are not applicable. Therefore, there needs to be a change. Now see, what are the challenges? Very simple, write one by one. What are the challenges? Very challenging about, right? What are the challenges? Okay. The most one, and which you can write in almost any answer regarding the infrastructure framework of any, from judiciary to police to law and order to doctors to hospital, anything. Vacancy of posts. The first and very foremost point is what? Vacancy. That is, it is understaffed, okay, and overworked is another word. Because see, there is a vacancy, that is a different thing, but there are cases still rising, the population rising, and by everyday rising population, cases related to police are increasing, but the people are still only that much. So that leads to overwork and understaffed. Okay. Now see, we'll see 1 or 2 data points. That how, what does the UN prescribe? The UN prescribes a number of 222, which should be the number of sanctioned police force per 1 lakh of population. Okay. In India, it is sanctioned. 192 has been sanctioned. But what is the present status? Like how many are actually employed? That is 152. A stark difference from what UN has suggested. And another, we are also saying that we need 192. There is sanctioned positions, seats for such vacancy, but the present day, the number of seats that are filled is only 152. Matlab, this leads to again showing what? There is stark unemployment difference, that there are positions, there are seats available, but it is not being filled. Like the case we saw what? Chief Information Commissioners also. This was the point. Second, see, we'll see another one more thing. Another big challenge is what? Colonial hangover. Okay. You need to write it as colonial hangover in policing, which says that it is just a hangover. You understand, very easy, understand the meaning of hangover, that it is, we are still somewhat attached to the colonial era, the colonial ages. That was the next point. Next is VIP syndrome in policing. That is also, see, almost everything will be related to the Police Act of 1861, because we are heavily inclined towards it. Okay. So next point was VIP policing. That means what? A large number of police force is employed or deployed towards protecting the VIP people. Not necessary, or to some extent necessary, but the magnitude in which it is being done is absolutely not necessary. Second is what? Politicization. Okay, that is another term which we can use in almost, politicization. From this, what happens is, through politicization, there is no security of tenure, because the force itself is highly dependent on the whims and fancies of the political leaders. Both go hand in hand. See, the police do something for them and they do something for them, and in this what who suffer? The common public. The aim with which the police was brought suffers. Next, there is no separation of power. For example, we don't need to be executive and judiciary separation. Separation means there should be strict separate guidelines for specialization for investigation and day-to-day things, like there should be crime wings for investigation, special demands for investigation. That is what? No separation between investigation and law and order. At present we don't have, but we recommend it to have special investigation team. Okay, matlab to maintain law and order there should be a different team, and for investigations there should be a different team. Next comes what? Always famous resource crunch is always there. Resource crunch. Whatever we want to, there will always be resource crunch. That is the dilemma of economy. There will always be resource crunch. The other is what? Autonomy versus political control. Very general answers, but at the heat of the exam moment you need to remember this. What? Autonomy. Matlab functioning according to the books, what they are mandated to do, versus political control. है ना? This is the same point as what? Politicization. Okay. Next. This, you need to remember a term. See, to enhance your answer, you'll always have to use some specific terms. One is, just write it down, constibular burden syndrome. I'll write it down for you. Constibular. The word comes from the word constable. Constibular burden syndrome. Okay. What it means is, okay, it means two things, that 90% of a police force is what? Constables. 90% of a police force is constables. Okay. That is the majority, maximum part of the police force. But just to relate, have you seen any movies being made of constables? No. Movies are only being made on the 10% of the officer section. Only those. But the whole burden lies with the constabular force. And they are the ones who are running every day, doing the research work, doing the investigation, everything. But there are no resources for them. There is no training for them. Therefore, it is called what? Constibular burden syndrome. And you can also relate it to something called as hierarchy trap. Like only 10% is the officers and they control 90%. See, control is a very negative term, but to understand, like such small population of officers are controlling the major part. है ना? That is what hierarchy trap also. Next term was, like in everything we are discussing, the times have changed. The times have changed and so have the crimes changed. You can write it all now. Times changed and so have the crimes changed is equal to crimes changed. For example, the latest is what? White collar terrorism. You can write an example. What is it? White collar terrorism. In recent times we've seen doctors, professional doctors are part of this terrorist group, terrorist community. That is what? A very new, novel idea, which there was no prior training for the police force or for the constable force, who compose of 90%. They were never trained for this thing. They are never trained for what? Cyber warfare, cyber crime. All these things are the war or special warfare of the 21st century, of this day and age. But our curricula is related to what? 1861. Therefore, all this has changed. But the syllabus is still that. The paper is still coming from that, but the day-to-day working is very much changed. Remember this, times have changed and so have the crimes changed. Okay, that is the part. Last is, after this point is what? Overburdened. Okay? Like, we saw na, ki vacancies are also there, but the crimes are increasing, the population is increasing, the question of maintaining law and order is always increasing. So, there is always overburdened, understaffed, overworked. Very simple answers for that. Next comes disconnect with public and police. Okay. See, you can write is a better framing of what is zero sum security mindset. Okay. Zero sum security mindset. See, what it means is, it means two ways. That the people in general, the citizens also don't trust the police, and the police also don't trust the citizens. They don't see the citizens as stakeholders. They see citizens as work, overburdened work. So, zero sum security mindset is called. Again, a simpler way of saying that is what? There's always a disconnect. If you don't remember such terms, there is always a disconnect between the public and police. People think what? Police is corrupt. The very idea which I told you. Now what do you think? Is that police is corrupt? Police takes bribes, or then lack empathy, sympathy, whatever you can think of. And the same goes with police also. Police think that it is just a job. They don't think citizens as a part of society. They don't think citizens as part of stakeholders. They think it is an overburdened job. Okay, that was it. Now, let's is another. See, we are all trying to fight what? Gender neutrality, crimes neutrality. So another term which comes up is the participation of women in police force. Okay? Less number of personnel in police force, and according to the latest data, it is what? Only 12%. Okay? Only 12% of the police force is female. 12% is female. So imagine such a stark difference. But half of the population, almost half the population is female. But when it comes to the ratio and population in the police force, only 12% is there. So you'll understand now, whenever a female goes to a police station, she'll have such uncomfortable difficulties, because you'll understand that better. Okay, now see. Next is tedious hai. Hota na? This, see, you won't able to relate to this because things are very tedious in nature. Like, for example, what is the most burden thing of police force? That is overworked hours. For example, whenever there is a function in the city, festival, whatever, who is the most working part at that time? When everyone has holidays, who is working? The police force is always working. Whenever there is a festival, whenever there is an occasion, whenever there is a political meeting, whenever any VIP comes, whose work is increasing day by day? The police force. These are extra duties. Irrespective of what they are doing, the law and order problem, the crime problem, they are dealing with every day and night. On top of that, festivals come up, holidays come up, occasions come up. So they are actually very tedious and overburdened. Understood? With this comes what? Infrastructure issues. Okay? Tedious work is also there, and that is enhanced with what? Infrastructure issues, like no proper vehicles are there, no technology is there, proper police stations are not there. All this, everything is very much connected. Okay. Next comes what? After all this work, okay, police are doing so much work. After all this work, there is always a conviction gap. Okay? Like so much of the resources are being put up for investigation, for controlling law and order, and for taking people to justice. But what is the conviction rate? The conviction rate is just 54% in the case of cases related to Indian Penal Code, which is now Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. And the second is only 30% related to murder, and 75%, see 37% is conviction rate when it comes to murder cases. But when it comes to the cases which are dealt with CBI itself, then the percentage rises, and it rises to 75%. So if you just leave this example, almost 50% conviction rate is not there, or only 50% conviction rate is there. Okay? After all this machinery put into place, all this structure working in tandem, still most of them, half of them are getting convicted and half of them are not getting convicted. Okay? That is all that. Now we'll see the next part. Okay? The recommendations of Prakash Singh case. Okay? It is known as Prakash Singh case, and the judgment ruled was 7 steps. Okay? Like through 7 steps, the police can be reformed. See, these you need to memorize. Hota na? It should be in your fingertips. Whenever a question comes of police or law and order, these are the recommendations which have to be imbibed and acted on in letter and spirit. What is the first? The first is what? A brief about Prakash Singh is what? He was the DGP of UP and the DG, Director General of BSF, Border Security Force in Assam, and this case happened in 2006. Okay? See, this case happened, he filed a case in 1996 or 1997, but the judgment came up in 2006, and that is known as the Prakash Singh Police Reforms Judgment. So what is the first? One by one. There are 7 steps. First is, there should be what? Security of tenure. Okay? Security, as we discussed now, there is politicization. Therefore, there is no security of tenure, because till the time you are working for the desired politician or the present politician, there is secure. But the day you go against him, the day you try to follow your duty, then they can be easily transferred. So there should be first security of tenure for DGP at the highest level of the state, for just security DGP for 2 years minimum. Like whenever he, she, any person is posted to the position of a DGP of a state, there should be security of tenure for minimum of 2 years. Next is what? Next is SHO. Everyday term, right? In all the movies we see SHO. He should also have a security of tenure for what? 2 years. What does SHO stand for? Station House Officer. यार इतना तो पता है. Station. He should also have a tenure, fixed tenure of 2 years. Same is the case of what? IPS. Any IPS posted anywhere. So he should always have a security of tenure of 2 years. See, 2 years is the minimum time through which he can understand the environment of that particular place and act on it, implement on it. Because if like someone is transferred within 6 months, less than 1 year, the time like, see, this is, I'll relate to a history example. When Gandhiji came back from South Africa, he took 1 whole year to just roam about, hota hai na, go to village and understand each and everyone's problems. Then he became a successful leader. Then he understood the problems, hota na, he understood the very core, and then he came up with solution like satyagraha, non-violence. And that, hota na, that showed the results. In the same way, there has to be a brief interregnum period so that policemen can judge, understand, analyze what is going on and then act and then implement, and then there need to be some time so that process needs to be evolved also. So the minimum time frame is 2 years. That is what this judgment is saying. Next is what? There should be, see, 2 things, right? Third point and fourth point are the common. There should be a state security commission at the state level, and there should be a state security commission, and there should be a national security commission at the national level. Merge these 2 points. What it says is, they need to see, these 2 bodies need to see the functioning of the police force of the state level and of the national level respectively. These bodies will look into the functioning, look into the complaint things of the police force. That is the primary function. Next is what? Police board should be established. Okay? Like the 5th point is, police board should be established. Now what does police board mean? Police board will see to the what? Transfer things. Who needs to be transferred when? What is the procedure? Whether following procedure, due procedure is followed or not. That is the work of police boards. Okay? Police establishment boards, PEBs. Oh, I missed over. Police establishment boards. Okay? Next point is, there should be a police complaint authority also. See, this is a very novel idea. Okay? If this is implemented, the citizens will get a lot of relief, because now if you want to complain to the police, it is a very tedious and hota na, to some extent next to impossible task. You have to go to the senior officials, and you know how in most of the cases how it turns out to be. But we are evolving and we are seeing positive cases also when there is a complaint and due law process is followed also. Okay? But just for the general idea that there should be what? Police complaint authority. Okay? Police complaint authority, that if you have or anyone has some relation, some distrust, disquiet with the police itself, then they will go to police complaint authority. And the last point is, okay, police complaint. The last point is what? Separate, as we discussed, there need to be a separate wing for law and order and a separate department, compartmentalization, whatever you like to say, for investigation. Again, the last point is like there should be separation. Okay? Law and order should be different. Law and order, and the second is investigation. So what will happen is, expertise will grow up. Like those guys who are into investigation, they'll go and expertise over it. Imagine first half of the day you're doing law and order problems, second half you're trying to investigate something. It becomes a very tedious task. So therefore, these are the 7 recommendations. Now, what are the other steps apart of this? These were the judgment related. Now comes the other basic steps, and after the steps we'll see the data points. Why? What led to the idea that our Honorable Prime Minister had to say that there needs to be a change in perception of the police in the youth, because we are what? Going through demographic dividend. We are a young population. If the young population itself is not to some extent having positive faith on the police, then the whole democracy can crumble. That is the idea. Now is what? Other recommendations. Okay? Not specifically to judgments, but what other things can be done. First and foremost, okay, modernization of state police force. Okay, it is known as modernization of state police force and of the central police force also. Both ways, you get the idea, right? Second is, there should be idea of digital FIRs. You might be hearing of this term, long digital FIRs. And see, in this specific case, what have we done? In Bharatiya Nyaya Sanghita, now we've introduced, remember, zero FIRs. What does zero FIR mean? Zero FIR means is, you can go and lodge a complaint in any police station irrespective of its territorial or judicial jurisdiction. Earlier in most of the cases, what was it told? There was no FIR because the police, the constable or whoever was in charge at that time at that police station used to say that this case, this authority does not come under our jurisdiction. But in the case of zero FIR, it is mandated that you just have to go to the police station and lodge a complaint. It is the responsibility of the police officials themselves to transfer your case from that very jurisdiction to the appropriate jurisdiction within 15 days. Just remember this. The idea of digital FIR is now seen in what? Zero FIRs. Understood? Okay. Next is simple terms like CCTNS, Crime and Criminal Networking System. We need to improve it, modernize it, keep it up to date, and tech savvy more. Simple points. Next, the state cannot directly select DGP. Okay? It should do what? This is seen in many cases, like state, hota na. See, when there's a nexus between the politician at the state level and the politician at the central level, so they can easily do that. But what it's recommended is that state should not directly select DGP. What it should do is, it should set the names to UPSC. And then UPSC seeing the criteria, seeing their, how much they employment, how much they work, the cases on which they work, they might have their own criteria. And then UPSC will select a name from the selected names given by the state itself. Okay? That is the other. Then other simple reforms in communication. Police needs to be what? Learn to show more empathy, more sympathy. They need to be soft spoken. Because whenever you reach the police, whenever you try to approach the police, you are already in a state of distress. There is something wrong. That is why you've gone there. And at that time, if someone is rude to you, unprofessional to you, so that will lead or increase the very problem. That is why. Okay. Then there is always has to be what? Specialization, increase in specialization. Every day-to-day change in technology needs to be integrated, upgraded. Simple points. Okay. Next, again, we saw what? NCRB data, National Crime Records Bureau data. What did that say? That only 12% were women. So, what are the other recommendations? Simple, increase this percentage. That is the basic. See, there was a problem and the solutions were just increase the percentage. Increase women in police force and see, and just write it. There is a Padmanabhaiah Committee and it said what? There should be 33% reservation in police force for women. I'll write down the name. Okay. I'm dictating it, it's better. Padmanabhaiah Padmanabhaiah, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, committee report, and it said was 33% mandatory reservation for women in police force. See, some states have implemented it, but it's just on paper. When you see the actual numbers, it's not there. That is. Second, this is one of the conclusion lines. See, it should be what? It should not be a centralized police force. It should be a citizen-centric police force. It should not be a political police force. You understanding that? Yeah? So centralization should be decentralized. It should be what? Sensitized, centralized. No, sorry, sensitized, and citizen-centric. Citizen-centric police force. Okay? Not the other way around. It should not be a political police force. It should not be a centralized police force. Okay? That. Next is what? Smart policing. See, we'll see the very smart policing should be also there. This is an acronym. We'll see in the next future slides that what it means and simple. I'm just dictating. If you want to write, you can write it down. Smart is what? S is for smart. Of course, S is for smart. Second is S is for sensitivity. M is for mobile. A is for accountable. R is for what? Responsible. And T is for tech savvy. There are one more words also. We'll see in the future slides. Again, smart police should be there. Okay? Smart is for what? S is sensitive. M is mobile. Matlab very easily they are ready to regroup, change their location. That is what is the meaning of mobile. Second is what? A is accountable. R is responsible and T is tech savvy. Understood? Then comes somewhat ethical changes. The very idea, as our Honorable Prime Minister said, that the perception should change. So how will the perception change? There should be a change in image of police. Change in image of police, and it should go both ways. The police should also see the citizens as stakeholders because it is the very citizens whom they are there to serve. So there should be a change in image. Police should not be seen as a force, it should be seen as a service. It goes both ways. ठीक है? See, people or citizens should also see what? Sensitive police force. होता है ना? They can easily approachable, and in the same way, police also should also see the citizens' what? As service. That is the very mandate why there is a police, to serve the people of the very country. Okay. Next, there should be what? This is a basic idea. Community policing, like Mohalla clinics are there. Community policing, because we are understaffed, overworked, vacancies so much. So this idea can also to some extent be implemented. What? Community policing. Because see, this is a tried and tested formula. Why? Because the people of that community are attached to that community, so that they are ready to serve, they are ready to protect their very community. So this idea can be brought to work on the ground level. I am very, to some extent, conservative about my society, my community, so I am willing to work for it, I am willing to protect it. And in the very definition we saw, if anyone who is ready to protect the society or protect crime is what? Seen as part of police. Okay, last is major overhaul needs to done in what? Working hours. So fix working hours. There has to be done a major overhaul over here, because you simply can't imagine the work that they do tirelessly. Imagine they are working on and on. So it is very difficult for them to be sympathetic, to be soft, because after days, after hours and hours of working, and working not just with common citizens, gentlemen, they are working with criminals. Keeping that in mind, expecting that they are soft, light-hearted, kind-hearted is very difficult after working for hours. So there should be fixed working hours. See, in some states, what happens is there is no particular holiday for the police. Okay? Plus, they are understaffed. So that small number has to manage double the amount. Double is an exaggeration, but you get it, na? Like any festival, any occasion, they have to work night and day. You are roaming about, you are having fun. But who is protecting, who is managing the crowd? It is always the police force. But what is the remuneration? Nothing. So, fixed working hours. And always remember, 90% is constables. So what? Imagine what lives they are spending. They don't have time for the family. When there is time for you to enjoy with your family during festivals, occasions, anything, they are working. And what expectation do we have? So it has to work both ways. We need to fix the working hours also. Then we can expect from them that you have to be sensitive, you have to be polite. Next. Done. Now we'll see the fact base. All the facts due to which all this is going. Remember, what was the current affairs part? The current affairs part was, there was a 60th annual meeting of DGP, Director General of Police, or IGP, Inspector General of Police, and there our Prime Minister said that there is urgent need to transform public perception of police, especially among the youth. Now the whole idea was to change the public perception. Public perception. Of what? Of youth, because we are a demographic dividend. It is the youth which is larger in numbers in our population. Now, first, to change the perception, you need to know what is the current position of perception. So what is the current perception? So we'll see this how? We'll see through some data, some NGOs, some judiciary reports, what they are saying about the police. So what is the current perception? You have to write it along. What is the current perception? First, we'll start with Indian Justice Report. What the Indian Justice Report is saying? First is IJR. I'll use the short form, Indian Justice Report. Write it down. Indian Justice Report. What it is saying is, police rank lowest in diversity training infrastructure. Like, there is no diversity, there is no training. They are ranking the lowest in, according to the Justice Report itself. Second is what? There's a report known as Lok Niti, LOKNITE, Lok Niti, and it's what is its formal body? It's known as Center for Study for Developing Studies. Center for Studies for Developing Studies. It is saying that only 27% of the people trust police. Only 27%. This is what? Perception about police. That only if you go to the police, or due to any reason, if you have an interaction of the police, there is only 27% of the people who actually trust them. Rest don't. Next is what? CHRI, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. According to CHRI, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, the very idea of is what? It is full of corruption, refusal to file an FIR, and intimidation. So what they are saying is, Police is what? Synonymous to corruption. They don't file FIRs easily, and there is what? Intimidation. This is the whole idea, perception about police. Last, according to other reports also, there's no need to write so much reports name, but according to other reports, what? Women and minorities feel least safe in police stations. See, if majority population, only 27% of population is trusting the police. So imagine about the marginalized section. Imagine about the minorities. So women, including women also, women and minorities / marginalized people feel least safe at police stations. In simple, police is viewed as what? Coercive, hota hai na? Forceful, corrupt, and most importantly, they see that there is always hota hai na, connecting the dots. Okay? I'll give you another example. You need to connect the dots, not connecting your thoughts. The dots always needs to be connected, because see, people usually see that there is always a nexus between politicians and police. So that is very visible. Hota na? There is data and it is visible. So how is police viewed? Coercive, politically influenced and corrupt. Now, we understood the data that this is the present situation, this is the present perception. Now we will see why. Why there is such public perception of corruption of police. Why? See, why also needs to be first very easy, that where do most of the powers of the police come from? Indian Police Act of 1861, because the aim was to suppress freedom, suppress intent. Okay? So, suppress dissent. Therefore, means and end you understood. The end was to suppress the dissent. Therefore, everything was enacted keeping that in mind. So, other small similar points of why was harsh command culture is there. There is no accountability. Matlab, hota hai na, ki there is actually no accountability. Last is public is again used as subjects. According to this, according to the majority of the police system, public is used as subjects. Hota hai na? What the subjects? There is hierarchy. There is the king and his subjects. So public, public according to is seen what? Public is seen as subjects, not stakeholders. Now, rest comes what? Politicization. You can, the common points, why? Because politicization is seen. Okay? These are the common points you can always write. Next is manpower shortage issues. You've seen manpower. These are the why. We've discussed this once again. UN said 222. India had sanctioned 192, but what is the present state? Only 152. Okay, you can write like this. This is the present state of affairs. Okay. Next is what? Okay. What does this mean? This means there are roughly 5.2 lakh vacancies. This we had missed in the earlier slide. There is see, this much people should be there. There is vacancy. There are posts for such, but we have sanctioned only 152. Immediately effective as of today or as of this report, there are only 152 positions taken. So rest 40, if you multiply with the whole of India, 5.2 lakh are vacancies, and there are so many reports regarding what unemployment data in India. Matlab, when there are seats available, the government, whichever government it may be, state, central, whatever, is not filling them. Okay, that is it. Now, last was, and the why we are again discussing, for me personally, the most important factor is number of working hours or duty hours. Okay, see, it goes both ways, right? They are stressed so much in life. That is why they are to some extent unable to show compassion. Hai na? That is what. So, understood public holidays, festivals, we discussed this again and again. Then, another important point and in detail is training. Only 1.3%, only again I repeat, 1.3% of the budget is dedicated to training. Whatever budget might be dedicated for the whole of police system to work, only 1.3% is dedicated to what? Training. And the best part is training also got into 1861. Imagine the curriculum, imagine the syllabus that they have, and it is still applying today because it is almost nowhere effective. Everything has not just changed, more than 360 degrees. Twice or thrice 360 degrees it has changed. But still we are following that same curriculum. There is no updation, and only, I repeat, 1.3% of the whole fund for the police is used in training. These were the basic things. So, in simple you can say, syllabus is outdated. Hota na? Age is outdated. But questions are coming from today. So how will they answer? Hota hai na? जब पढ़ा ही नहीं है तो कैसे? How will they solve today's problems? How will they solve the problems of cyber crime, cyber warfare, होता है ना, digital crimes, new white collar crimes? How will they solve? During 1861, no one ever heard of white collar crimes, but now it is the present reality. Okay, see, next is why may, another is infrastructure issues. We discussed infrastructure issues. Infrastructure goes both ways. ठीक है, physical infrastructure plus we'll see. ठीक है, 40% of the, these are all authentic data. Okay, I'm repeating it. 40% of the stations lack modern forensic tools. See, when 1861 was there was no so much need of forensic, but now 40% lack of the police, मतलब of the police stations lack forensic tools. होता है ना, just to analyze the crime scene, those tools are missing. There are no CCTV cameras. मतलब it is mandated that nowadays even the courtrooms have CCTV cameras, but as of today, not every police station of India still does not have CCTV cameras. So if there are no cameras, there is poor, very poor digital record taking. Poor digital record taking. ठीक है, you are seeing now all these, मतलब if all these were implemented, it would lead to what? Transparency, accountability. But if this is not there, it leads to what? Secrecy, ambiguity, होता है ना, discretion. See, last point in this was because why there is such a perception. We are discussing why the perception. Last point and the most common point in from movies to common pan masala, matlab where common chai stalls debate. This is the most common point, that corruption and extortion. The police is what? Corrupt and extort, and we have seen that in numerous cases. Therefore, it has been developed, and these numerous cases are mostly what? Pre-independence. The very idea that we saw from those days before independence, that has been carried forward till now. The very essence of police hasn't changed. See, corruption and extortion. Okay? And the next impossible task of filing an FIR. So what do we call it? FIR for favor culture. है ना? Simple things. Now, what are next? See, we've discussed why. Okay? Now, other data relating to police atrocities. These are the perception. So we need to always, why is there such a perception? Because the data is showing it. Because individuals are facing such an issue. So police atrocities and human rights violation, we will see. Police data related to police atrocities. See, these are very complexing and heartwarming data. You will somewhat feel saddened that this is the present state of affairs, but this is the data and need to memorize it and to write it. Okay? First is, according to, always remember, National Crime Records Bureau. Okay? NCRB data. From the first day we are seeing mostly when it comes to crime or criminal justice system, this is the data we are seeing. So how many are there custodial deaths? Okay? What is the number of custodial deaths? Just think for a moment. Okay? How many are there? The custodial deaths in 2022 itself is 175 police custodial deaths. This is the data related to 2022. 175. Matlab 175 people died in the police custody itself. And in judicial custody is 1879. Police custody. Okay? 1879 is judicial custody. Do you know the difference between police custody and judicial custody? See, when there is a complaint against you, the police, you spend 15 days in the police station, and after that 15 days you are sent to judicial custody. So 175 deaths in police custody and more than 10 times the deaths in 1879 deaths in judicial custody. This is National Crime Records Bureau data itself. Now, what is the number of charge sheeting? See, what do you mean by charge sheeting? Charge sheeting simply means is you file an FIR. After that, whatever report the police make through their investigation is called charge sheet. Okay? So what is the percentage of charge sheet being filed? Like there are n number of complaints, n number of FIRs. Even of this moment as I am speaking, numerous people might have been filing an FIR. But after that filing an FIR, it is the duty of the police, it is mandated to the police that they carry out their own investigation. And after that, that investigation, when they file that whole complete report, that is called charge sheet. And this rate is less than 25%. Imagine, only 25% charge sheet is filed. And last is what? Conviction rate. Again, we discussed overall. See, we discussed about murder, about IPC. But in general, if you take all the cases, IPC, CRPC, Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, other laws also, it is only less than 5%. Conviction rate is less than 5%. Only in the case of CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, we see that the conviction rate is 75%. This was the data. Now, what happens is other violations. See, this I am just reading it out, not so much important, right? What are the other violations? According to NHRC, what is NHRC? National Human Rights Commission, India's only, our own National Human Rights Commission. Now, according to it, more than 8,000 to 10,000 cases are filed. ठीक है, what are these related to? Incidents of torture. ठीक है, मतलब NHRC is filing complaints against police. ठीक है, filing complaints against police regarding what? Again, torture, tampering of evidence, whatever you, extortion killings, encounter killings, illegal detention. So this is roughly 10,000, from 8,000 to 10,000 every year. These guys are taking up the mantle and trying to ask questions to the very police itself. Last and the most famous, on which movies are mostly made, what? Encounter killings. What is the data about encounter killings? Matlab, in movies it seems very fascinating, but the actual data is almost bone chilling. The data is according to, again, National Human Rights Commission. There are cases of 151 okay, alleged fake encounters from 2021 to 2023. Everything is a big word, fake. Okay, fake. See, these are all accusations. We are not judging anything. But according to the accusation of National Human Rights Commission, from 2021 to 2023, approximately 150 cases of fake encounter killings was there. And this is the actual data. So, all this leads to what? A general thing of mistrust. What is there? It is mistrust. Okay. Why? Now we discussed everything in detail. Okay. Now, briefly, why there needs to be reforms? Again, you know, times are changing, and you should always write it. Times are changing is equivalent to what? Crimes are changing. It's rhyming also. Times are changing and crimes are changing. Okay. Because crimes, like times, are ever evolving. There has been what? Keeping all this in mind, new codes have been discussed. We saw, na? BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha, all this. Last is what? In the ever evolving crime scene, remember one more data about cyber crime or cyber crime. Okay? There is what? 63%. See, 10 years ago there was no such thing, or there was a minuscule thing called cyber crime. But as of today's data, what are tech driven crimes? Okay? Cyber crime has seen an increase of 63%. Increase of 63%. Imagine your salary increasing by 63%. Okay? It is seen in from what? A bare minimum from 2020 to 2023. Just in a meager time of 3 years, there has been increase of 63%. Okay? Dekho, the simple reason what? Police is what this shows. Crimes are increasing because criminals are not behind bars. What that shows? That police is ill-equipped for such day, age and such crimes. Police is not very much equipped. Police, we are trying to make the police tech savvy, but as of now it is not. Now we'll see other dimensions. Okay? A part of this hota na criminal political dimensions, there are what? Economic dimensions also. That you can always write in a GS paper 3. Okay? Economic and other dimensions. What does economics say? Economics says, when will FDI come in, or when will anyone, even the local people, try to invest in a city or a space when it is safe? You will not go and build a hotel or a town or a whatever business management if that particular place is not safe. है ना? So that is what the economic and governance dimension is, because rule of law is essential for investment climate, be it local investment, regional investment or FDI foreign investment. So rule of law is very essential. So because in almost all of my lectures I've said economics is the only thing which matters. Money is the only thing which matters. So get in more money for getting in more investment, even for the very local people. If you want the local people also to invest, rule of law should always be prevailed. There should always be a safe environment. Next is what? A part of economics, in disaster management also. है ना? As we discussed, the first thing, what is police? Police is the first point of contact. If there is any disaster, any mishappening, where do you go to? The police. Always, anything from theft till earthquakes, है ना? From theft till floods, everything. The police is always, where do you rush? To the police, the first point of contact. Now see, we'll just see with an example, because our Honorable Prime Minister emphasized during cyclonic Ditwa. Okay? Cyclone, it is a very, very recent. Okay? It happened in end of November to the first week of December, where in deep South India, Sri Lanka and just the tip of India. Okay? That is the place it is important for your prelims also. That is the place where cyclone Nitwa came, and when that came, where did the people rush to, or who were the first people to come to the rescue, to come to the awareness? That was the police. This is the very part that our PM Modi was emphasizing, that police is also the first point of contact during disaster management. Next, perception matters a lot, है ना? We always say ना कि whatever first impression is the last impression, ठीक है? So we've been carrying on the impression of police since 150 years. So that is the very idea which needs to be changed. So what is that? Perception again matters, because if we want to become a Viksit Bharat, there always has to be synchronization between what? Police and citizens. There is police for the citizen, and to some extent citizens should also make the life of police easy also. It always goes both ways. The government is for the people and people is for the government, right? That is why. So to change the perception, all the new laws are coming up, है ना? Last, from all the recommendations, the other 3 important recommendations we will see. होगा ना? There was just, you need to write down the names, because all in everyone to almost in the same extent said the same thing. One is what? Malimath Committee. ठीक है? See, the most important again I am reading is the Prakash Singh case and the Prakash Singh judgments. Both are the same thing. But another is what? The Malimath Committee, and we'll see in sequence. ठीक है? It happened in Malimath Committee in 2003. This also suggested what? Police reforms. And if you just want to write down one point, it suggested scientific investigation. Second is what? Model Police Act 2006. ठीक है? In the definitions we saw Model Police Act, Ministry of Home Affairs. That same Model Police Act 2006. Just write down one point about it. What is important is, it said what? People friendly policing. ठीक है? People friendly policing. है ना? See, there are always novel ideas, but the whole question is about implementation and how this implementation works out. Next is second ARC 2007. In almost all your paper 2 answers and paper 3 answers, you can always quote second ARC. ठीक है? 2007. One important point which it said was that smart policing. From that time we are discussing, right? Smart policing. Now just write down what is smart policing. S stands for, the first thing what? Strict and sensitive. It should be strict also, strict for the criminals, है ना? Second, it should be sensitive also for the citizens. M stands for modern and mobile. It should be modern also, tech savvy, tech driven and mobile, ready to change its place, ready to go from here to there in no time. Third is A. A is what? First we discuss accountable, but being accountable should be alert also, always ready on its feet. Last is R. It should be reliable and responsive. You should be able, the image should be such, or the character of police should be such that you are reliable, you are relying on it. And second, you should know that it is very responsive. If I go to the police, they will react immediately. They will respond immediately. And last is what? T. T key is what? For tech savvy, trained, both tech savvy and highly trained professionals. Last, other simple, just write down one more name, is Ribeiro Committee. ठीक है? It was very much in news and it's a good name also, Ribeiro Committee. This also suggested a few things regarding transformation of the whole police structure. ठीक है? Police should be made what? There should be Police Accountability Commission. That is what is suggested, and that is why it is important. What again? Police Accountability Commission. And last, Padmanabhaiah Committee, we saw that 33% reservation should be there for women in, and it should be made mandatory in the police force. ठीक है? So last is the concluding slide. So how will we conclude? ठीक है? You can use your own words, but your words should reflect these 2 ideas, very basic ideas. First is from political centric to people centric. ठीक है? Now what is the present state? Why is the perception so bad? Because it is what? Political centric. And what is the aim? People centric. Second is what? Just try to think in the same manner. Second is what? Second is what? Colonial centric. Colonial centric. And the aim is what? Citizen centric. Whatever your conclusion would be, it should reflect this. This is the basic idea. This is the very change. This is the end of today. So the means should be all focused on the end. End is what? People-centric policing, citizen-centric policing, sensitized policing. Okay, that's it for today. I'm sure, see, this was all important because of the current affairs, and this much information, this much data is more than enough to cover any answer or any होता है ना interview question also relating to the police. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you.